Roadside Picnic, although not a GSC licensed book, it served as the main inspiration for the series of the Stalker games that followed, a philosophical science fiction novel by the Soviet authors Arkady and Boris Strugatsky. It was written in 1971, published in 1972, and is their most popular and most widely translated novel outside of the former Soviet Union. The story was published in English in a translation by Antonina W. Bois. The term stalker became a part of the Russian language and, according to the authors, became the most popular of the neologisms. In the book, stalkers are people who trespass into the forbidden area known as the Zone and steal its valuable extraterrestrial artifacts, which they later sell. The term acquired the meaning of a guide who navigates forbidden or uncharted territory. Later on, urbexers and fans of industrial tourism, especially those visiting abandoned sites and ghost towns, were also called stalkers. Roadside Picnic is set in the aftermath of the extraterrestrial event, the Visitation, which occurred simultaneously in several locations around the Earth over a 2-day period. Neither the visitors themselves nor their means of arrival or departure were ever seen by the local population, who lived inside the relatively small areas, each a few square kilometers, of the 6 visitation zones. The zones exhibit strange and dangerous phenomena that are not understood by humans and contain artifacts with inexplicable properties. Stalker's Southern Comfort. Stalker's Southern Comfort is the title of the first book from the game universe that has been written in English. It was published in September 2011. In February 2011, GSC asked the community if they had any interest in an English book based on the games. Responses were favorable, but for one reason or another, GSC didn't follow up on the idea. In spring 2011, a small group of fans teamed up to create their first English book. GSC gave them the go-ahead and permitted them to use copyrighted content. By summer 2011, the team consisted of 5 graphic artists, 3 music composers, 2 authors, and a proofreader. Later on, a military advisor with a non-disclosed background also stepped in to prove the manuscript regarding weapons and tactics. As of early August 2012, the book was completely removed from Amazon, except for 3 copies selling for over $900. The website for the novel now only says, "See you when the mission is over," on a black background. As of January 2013, both Southern Comfort and its sequel, Northern Passage, were available for download in full PDF form from the novel's website, which is now defunct. The books can still be found for free on Smashwords. The story is set in 2014, 8 years after the zone came into existence around the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, and 2 years after the events of Call of Pripyat. In the book Alternative Reality, terrorists detonate nuclear warheads near Kabul, Afghanistan. After a few years, rumors start spreading about a new zone having been created there. Because nuclear fallout alone cannot create the zone, the Ukrainian Academy of Sciences sends an expedition into the new zone to find out if its creation could be connected to another rift in the noosphere. When they disappear, Major Degtyarev sends out Captain Tarasov on a search and rescue mission. Stalker Northern Passage. Stalker Northern Passage is the sequel novel of Southern Comfort. It was published in April 2012. The events taking place in this book are happening in multiple places simultaneously, mostly in Ukraine, the Old Zone, and Afghanistan, New Zone. In the Old Zone, the main characters are Mayor Tarasov and Nooria. In the New Zone, the main characters are Marines and the tribe. Stalker Toad Zone. Stalker Toad Zone is a rare piece of Stalker lore outside the main game trilogy, a German language novel set in the radioactive heart of Chernobyl. Often overlooked, it introduces unique storylines, characters, and interpretations of the zone's behavior. Here is its blurb. Chernobyl in the not-so-distant future. The old power plant still lies at the center of a restricted zone that poses riddles for all humanity. It is an area of horror where mutants run rampant and the laws of nature no longer apply. But it's also a place that attracts fortune seekers from all over the world, drawn by the promise of untold riches. Most of these stalkers are solely interested in scoring the zone for artifacts to sell to the highest bidder. Yet among them are 2 men who seek something more. David Roth and Alexander Marinin are determined to uncover the mystery of the zone itself. Against all odds, they push forward into the heart of the old power plant, but the journey is perilous, riddled with death and danger, and in the end, bitter revelations await. Stalker Inferno. Stalker Inferno is another German-written novel that can still be found on Amazon for €140. It gives another look into what the zone could have been if things went another way. Here's its blurb. On April 12, 2006, illegal psi experiments led to a horrific catastrophe. A 30 square kilometer area around the decommissioned Chernobyl nuclear reactor was declared an exclusion zone. 4 years later, the situation escalated escalated dramatically. The lockdown could no longer be maintained. Countless fortune seekers, so-called stalkers, scored the contaminated area for artifacts that could find buyers worldwide. Many stalkers paid a high price for their greed, as they were constantly confronted with inexplicable phenomena and voracious mutations. Those responsible for the catastrophe tried to salvage what they could at any cost. To this end, they employed the Monolith Stalkers, a religious sect that ruthlessly carried out their criminal orders. Only two men stood in their way: David Roth and Major Alexander Marinin, who once again ventured into the zone to save the world from an inferno of unimaginable proportions. Killzone. Killzone was written as a result of a creative trip of a group of Russian writers from the AKSMO publishing house to Kiev, which took place in 2004, during which the authors were acquainted with the details of the game Stalker Oblivion Lost being developed: design documents, script, game assemblies, concepts, and sketches. In addition to the Russian first edition, the book was also published in German in 2008 by Panini Books, and in Hungarian in 2017. A short blurb: they're called Stalkers, adventurers and profiteers who through obstacle courses and cordons of heavily armed peacekeepers penetrate the forbidden, anomalous zone that formed around the Chernobyl nuclear power plant at the beginning of the 21st century, an area inhabited by monstrous creatures and where deadly traps await. Hamill is one of them. However, unlike the others, he knows not only how to enter the zone, but also how to return. It's no surprise that he was tasked with organizing safaris in the zone for wealthy foreign tourists. Things got even more surprising later when Hamill's group began to be actively hunted by soldiers, half-mutated stalkers, ordinary mutants, and even the mythical masters of the zone. His tourists, it seems, weren't there for the thrills.